Well, welcome everybody. This is a very, very special time, and I am so grateful to welcome you all. And I think that when you hear Jessie's Commitment, you will know how important Loreto community is to her. So we thank you. We thank you all for coming and enjoy this very precious time in the Loreto community. Thank you.
So one of my jobs is to explain a little bit about the job of a contact person. This is the first time I've ever done it. And I have to say, it has been the easiest job of my life, being Jessie's contact person in Loreto. The contact person is the person who virtually links the person in process to the community in many ways, historically, getting to know people, participating in activities, and so on. So at one point, I don't know, maybe a couple of months after I had been in this role, I called Jessie and we were chatting, and I said, oh, by the way, did you get the information about the seminar in a couple of weeks that's put on by Loreto Women's Network and the Loreto Earth Network? And she said, I told her when it was and where, and she said, oh, I did. I'm one of the planners. And so that's kind of the way it's gone.
This is not part of what I wrote down, but it's been really, really fun having Martha as my contact person. Martha and I share many things, one of which is we are both inherently practical people, and I met Martha the night of her co-membership celebration because Susan and Joanne were in town for it, and they said, you have to come meet this woman. And I followed their directions. So we came, and we met this woman. And it was very awkward. We didn't know what to say to each other at all, but we just sort of sat there next to each other. You're Martha, I'm Jessie, okay. But they said, you have to be friends with her. It's just not an option. So when Lisa asked me who I wanted my contact person to be, I said, well, I have to be friends with this woman anyway, so she might as well be my contact person. And Lisa said, well, she's never done it before. And I said, I don't care. We'll figure it out. It's fine. So that's how that happened, and it's been great. The first time Andy met Martha, his comment was, wow, no wonder y'all get along so well. She is so practical. And it was, I don't know when it was, not too long before assembly, and we were, Martha and I were on the phone, and Andy got home from work while I was chatting with Martha. So he was making dinner, and I get off the phone, and I went into the kitchen, and so he said, so how is your Martha doing? And I said, Andy, she's not my pet. And he said, no, but she's definitely yours. And I thought, you know, he's right, she is. And ever since then, I've referred to her as my Martha, and it's been really nice. So, okay, now I'm doing this. And I'm sorry, Martha, it might be longer than 5 minutes, which is, but it's okay, it's okay. So this is not where I thought I would end up in my life. It was about 9 years ago that Loreto fell into me. Somehow I found out about a day-long workshop reflecting on the life and works of Thomas Berry, held at some school I had never heard of called St. Mary's Academy. I honestly don't remember meeting anyone in particular. Some of you have since reminded me that you were also in attendance that day. But I do remember being struck at the very core of my being that something was just very right about that gathering. I felt cloaked in a deep peace that seemed almost sacred. And after this gathering, something else happened that had never happened to me before. This nun named Mary Kay just would not stop emailing me. She emailed me about everything. Talks, protests, Good Friday, processions through the city. I assumed for a long time that all of these things were Loreto events, and I was amazed at how active this community was. It was not all Loreto. I attended some of these events on occasion, and many months after that first gathering, I arrived in this very room for a seminar on immigration. I believe I was just a minute late. I walked in, was looking over there for my name tag, and here from the podium, Mary Kay said, "Jessie, I'm so glad you came." And I thought, aha. I had forgotten her face, but this was definitely the woman who had been reaching out to me and seemed unwilling to let go. We went out for dinner a few times, and our emails became more personal. 5 years ago, she invited me to the Mother House for a young adult retreat. I let her invitation sit in my inbox, ignored and unanswered for 6 months. Less than a month before the gathering, I emailed her and said, I want to go. She sent me a check to cover the cost of my plane the very next day. That retreat was profound, not necessarily in the materials that we covered or the people that I met, but in Loreto coming together as a whole. I was fairly familiar with the community by that time. I had attended many events here. I knew many of you. I had heard about the co-membership process and all of those different things. But on that first trip to the Mother House, I was struck by the intensity of Loreto's history. I spent hours in the archives and the museum with a personal guide, and I have no idea who that was. And if you're at the Mother House watching and that was you, thank you. Literally hours we spent there. My questions were endless, as well as this woman's patience. Names, dates, faces, and stories were stitched together, and the magnitude of what I learned was awe-inspiring. I wandered the fields, laid in the grass, got eaten alive by chiggers and mosquitoes, and began to see not only where this community had originated, but how they had sustained themselves for over 200 years. At one point, I called my then boyfriend, Andy, from that little blue room on the second floor of Knox Haven, and I was trying to explain to him what I was experiencing, but I just simply wept. I had no words. He was very confused and concerned about what you were doing to me. And he just kept asking if I was okay. And all I could say was, something big is happening. I don't know what it is, but I want you to know that something is happening. My non-Loreto friends often ask me why I am so drawn to this community, and my answer is always the same. I did not know what I needed was community. Then Loreto came into my life, and I found myself incapable of turning away. I want you to know that Loreto is not simply a volunteer group for me. I spend a ton of time working on committees for this group, volunteering for you. But that is not why I am here. And it is not that you have given me a golden avenue by which to engage in peace and justice work. Working for social justice was how I was raised. Your passion for peace and justice is humbling, but it was not only the what that you were doing, but the how of what you were doing that resonated so deeply with me. I watched you for many years before I dared to say that I wanted to be one of you. And I learned many things. You do not always get along. You do not always agree. You do not always have the same vision for peace and justice. You do not always have the same vision for your future as a community. But you stay together. And in your staying together, there are very specific ways that you engage in your differences and in your agreements. Each individual's integrity and each person's truth are handled with care. And you create practices to ensure that all of these truths are heard. Trust runs very deep. You strive to listen without barriers, and you laugh a whole lot. You struggle with each other because you are as committed to each other as you are to your ideals. And this commitment to each other, to hold each other to the ideals that brought you together, and to hold each other to the community that you have created, this made a difference to me. I learned very early on in Loreto that process is as important as what we are processing. For a long time, this drove me crazy. I am a practical, efficient multitasker who loves checking things off of her list. I have learned not to make Loreto lists. This community is constantly engaged in exploration of some kind, or of several kinds. You trust each other to not always know where you're going, or what kind of work you'll be engaged in, or what you will even become. I think it was this trust of spirit, this trust of history, and this trust of an unknown future that really set you apart. Just as I did not expect to find myself here at this point in my life, many of you did not expect to find your community here. The composition of this community has drastically changed over the last several decades, and I am probably not what you had in mind. Married, not at all Catholic, not brought up in a Loreto school, not a former volunteer. I arrived by accident. But here we are. At a regional gathering a few years ago, I observed just a hint of some of the grief that you have been experiencing for years. I heard a lot of comments like, "We were great teachers, we were a great community, and now that era is through. The average lifespan of religious communities is 200 years, so we're right on track. No one new is coming, no one is taking vows, our time is done." I left with a heavy heart, both for you, who I was learning to care so deeply about, and for me. But by the time I got home, I have to admit, I was angry. I ranted to Andy about what I had heard, how I didn't understand, how distressed I was, and how much unexpected fear had arisen in me. Finally, he just asked, "What are you asking of them? What is it that you want?" My answer was very clear. I want their future. Loreto has seeped into my being and settled deep in my bones. I plan my work schedule and personal life around Zoom meetings, around retreats, and around community groups. Andy and I went to the mother house for our honeymoon. And we spent a large portion of our time there pulling out poison ivy and creating a parking spot with Susan. And I also didn't write this down, but Andy was a hit in the dining room. Which I knew he would be. And it was often me pulling him away at the end of the meal saying, "Andy, we have to get back to the parking spot. We don't have time for any more stories." He's very good at listening to stories, though. I lost my place. Okay. When I began the process of becoming a co-member, my desire to be committed to this community was not in question. I made that decision individually, firmly, long before I shared that desire with anyone. Rather, I looked at this time and process as a time of becoming. I took what I had observed for years and began to practice it myself. The way the community functions in collegiality and subsidiarity. The way you value and encourage grassroots movements. I adopted your past, and I opened my future to you. I thought deeply about what it means to insert myself in this long line of women, from Mary, Anne, and Christina, to Praxedes, to Anne Manganero, to Luke, to Helen, to so many others. Now I step into this line and lean on their vision and their wisdom as I look with you to our future. I wrote many of you asking 3 simple questions about a month ago. I asked what you envisioned for the Loreto community, what you think Loreto needs right now, and what else I should consider as I prepared for the celebration. You took me very seriously and you gave me a lot of reading. Some of you emailed and said, we're working on your homework. And I was glad that you felt like I gave you an assignment. Your responses were thorough and thoughtful, and your wisdom, again, as it so often does, modified my thinking. So now, in a mixture of your own words and mine, I make my commitment to you. I will advocate and agitate for immigrants, for the poor, for women, for the unaware, for all who are marginalized. I will work for the justice that will bring peace. I will continue to study and learn about Loreto history, I am the way, white privilege, evolutionary spirituality, and whatever else arises in our community. I will enmesh myself in the history and spirit of Loreto, for to know our history is to know our future. I will live simply, striving each day to better care for and advocate more strongly and clearly for Earth. I will be open to the spirit within our community, speaking truth, listening with open-heartedness, and taking bold steps when necessary. I will journey the path of our future with you, walking one step at a time, listening and learning from you, and sharing my vision and my hopes. I will love the questions and live into the questions instead of only looking for clear answers. I will practice trust that empowers, and I will uphold the Loreto values of initiative, collegiality, and subsidiarity. I will be joyful in our enduring friendships and sincere caring for each other, recognizing that it is our shared values and practices that allow us to be joy-filled and peaceful together in our daily lives. I will do all kinds of logistical things. Attend community groups, be active in communities, organize anything and everything you ever ask me to organize. Participate in regional meetings and assemblies and retreats. I will participate fully in the life of our community in all the various forms that might take. In the short time I have been a part of you, you have shaped me, modified me, and challenged me, and taught me. I will humbly walk with this community, continually examining myself and being modified as we move into the future together. As part of their response to me, Eldon and Marcella sent me a blessing as I was preparing my commitment. And I would now like to share that blessing back with the entire community. Blessed be the longing that brought you here and that quickens your soul with wonder. May you have the courage to befriend your eternal longing. May you who enjoy creative and critical companionship of the question, what am I, or who are we? And may it brighten your longing. May you sense the something that enlarges your life. May your soul be as free as the ever-new waves of the sea. May you succumb to the danger of growth. May you live in the neighborhood of wonder. May you belong to love with the wildness of dance. And may you know that you are ever embraced in the kind circle of the divine.
Welcome.
Sorry, I forgot.
Jessie, seeker of community. We, the Loreto community, invite you to be with us as we
try to realize among ourselves that unity which is the work of the Spirit in the church, from I Am the Way. And we invite your response together.
Be with us, Jessie, in community.
Jessie.
Shaper.
Jessie.
Shaper of.
Community. We, the Loreto community, desire you to be united in love with God, with all Loreto members, with all people, and with all creation.
So that our basic desire may shape this community of faith. From I Am the Way, number 20, and
Be with us, Jessie, in this community of faith.
Jessie, called to Loreto community. We, the Loreto community, offer you our life in common,
which calls us to be faithful to shared goals, to common norms, and to collaborative service. I Am the Way, 21.
Be with us, Jessie, in fidelity to our call to life in common.
She's anxious. In the name of the Loreto community, I accept you and welcome you and offer you our gratitude for your desire to be one with us in this awesome, spirit-filled, mysterious, common Loreto life. Welcome.